Morning and welcome to our second DISINFO Talks webinar hosted by AI4Debunk project. This webinar is the second of a series of DISINFO Talks where we aim to raise awareness about the dangers of fake news, propaganda, disinformation, and also while highlighting the important role of AI4Debunk and also of the AI that will fight them. I would like to introduce with distinct honor our first speaker, Peter Fries, that is from the Senior Program Officer at the European Commission's DG Connect in Brussels. He's responsible for social media and media innovation, trust and digital well-being, and leads activities around European initiative bringing together science, technology, and the arts. Peter, the floor is yours.
Hey, good morning, everybody. So my name is Peter Fries from the European Commission, DG Connect. It's my pleasure to welcome you today at this webinar. And so it's the second session on the DISINFO Talk series, which brings together researchers, journalists, scientists, fact-checkers, and technology developers around a challenge that is central to European democratic resilience. Disinformation is not a new phenomenon, but its scale, speed, and sophistication are changing rapidly. In areas such as Russia's war against Ukraine and the climate crisis, false manipulative narratives are used not only to confuse citizens, but also to weaken trust in institutions, science, journalism, and democratic debate itself. These are exactly the kinds of real-world challenges today's agenda will explore, and you will explore, from disinformation narrative linked to Ukraine to manipulated content in the climate change debate, and maybe potentially also talking about other challenges in that. At European level, this work connects directly with the broader policy effort to strengthen the integrity of our information space. Already the European Democracy Action Plan set out important foundations for protecting elections, supporting free and independent media, and countering disinformation. More recently, you've certainly heard about it, the European Democracy Shield reflects the need to step up to detect and to respond to information manipulation, while strengthening society resilience and supporting trusted actors, such as fact-checkers, researchers, and journalists. But policies are not enough. They need communities that can translate objectives into concrete tools and practice. And that's you. This is where the AI Against Disinformation cluster, so your project and other projects the European Commission is supporting, plays an important role. I think AI4Debunk is now one of the leading projects putting forward this collective effort on AI-driven fact-checking and disinformation tools. And of course, practical solutions, because ultimately, if solutions we are developing stay on the shelf or at home, nobody's going to using them. My view, and I think the European Commission view, is that AI-powered solutions can make a real difference, not as a replacement for human judgment, but as a force multiplier for those working to defend the public sphere. AI can help identify patterns that will otherwise remain hidden and accelerate the work of fact-checkers who are often operating under significant time pressure or just are not enough to do all the work and all the fake news which is spreading around rapidly. At the same time, I think we should also be clear and open. AI is being used by malicious actors to produce more convincing, more targeted, and more rapidly distributed disinformation. So this means our task not only to simply innovate, but also to innovate responsible, combining technology expertise with policy insight, journalistic standards, scientific evidence, and civil society experience. So we also driving not only the detection of fight against disinformation and fake news, but also a responsible way for AI. And that's, I think, is one of the very important use cases this project is bringing forward. I think today's webinar is a valuable opportunity to do exactly that, right? I look forward to see your AI tools in action. We recently also discussed that European Digital Media Observatory, ETMO, is going to host a platform where those tools might be available to a wider audience. And I think we all still just on an intermediate step in a landscape where tools, threats, challenges are ever evolving. So our work will not stop. But as long as we do it, I think we do something for Europe and for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter. It was really an honor that you participate in our webinar. And going from policy and context to AI4Debunk project and research and social resilience, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Iveta Reinhode. She's also chairing our steering committee at AI4Debunk. She is the professor of public administration and vice dean for research at the Faculty of Economics and Social Sciences at the University of Latvia. She has considerable experience in conducting policy evaluations, working in multinational teams and international settings on such areas as public administration reform, internal audit, human security, education, and public services. Iveta, please, it will be a pleasure to introduce AI4Debunk. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to AI4Debunk Disinformation Talks webinar. I would say, of course, it's my pleasure to see such a diverse group of researchers, professionals, educators, journalists, technologies, and simply people who do care about disinformation and the effect of disinformation today, since this is a topic that affects all our societies. Let's be realistic. The spread of disinformation and the growing role of artificial intelligence is as amplifying as well measures to countering increases. If I compare with our reality like 10 years ago, we are living in an information environment that is much more faster, complex, and fragmented than ever before we have seen. We enjoy AI tools because they can generate convincing texts, images, audio, and video within a few seconds, which is not possible for human beings. So from such a perspective, AI creates remarkable opportunities for innovation, but at the same time, it raises the key questions. Where is the trust? What about the democratic values? What about media literacy? And all in all, about the public accountability. These issues are exactly why conversations like today is extremely important, because the ultimate goal of this webinar is not only to discuss risks, but also to explore practical solutions, interdisciplinary cooperation, and also to discuss responsible approaches to the use of AI in combating disinformation. Therefore, in today's webinar, I encourage everyone to actively engage, ask questions, share experience, and really provide your own input and reflect on how we can strengthen resilience in our communities and societies to countering disinformation. Thank you, and wish a fruitful discussion.
Thank you very much, Iveta. Thank you, and for leading also the work at AI4Debunk, being from University of Latvia, which is our coordinator. I now give the floor to our first moderator from the panel. We'll focus on case studies. So Sigita, she's Secretary General at Latvian Transatlantic Organization and lecturer at the University of Latvia. So Sigita, the floor is yours to present also your panelists and the first panel that we have prepared.
Thank you, Victoria. Indeed, I have the honor to moderate panel with three great speakers, and we are going to have non-easy task in 50 minutes to talk about false narratives impact in the context of Ukraine, or I would put it Russia's aggressive war in Ukraine and climate change. And we are going to look on two specific case studies. One is uncovering and analyzing disinformation narratives in the Ukraine conflict, or again, I would rather put Russia's aggressive war in Ukraine. And second case study is going to be identifying manipulated content and falsehoods in the climate change debate. As you see, both of the topics are super important if we look on contemporary context. And the three speakers which we are going to have today is Georgi from EU Alive, Zhesislava from Interviews Ukraine, and Pascaline from pilot for Deb. So I was asked not to start with debate directly. I was asked to give at least 5 minutes for each speaker for in first presentations. So only then we will switch to the real debate. And now I would like to ask Georgi. Georgi, floor is yours.
Thank you, Sigita. There are two media participating in the AI4Debunk project. Zvenislava is going to describe the role of Internews Ukraine. For my part, I will say that EU Alive is providing rich material for research. I'm originally from Bulgaria. Our team is based in Bulgaria. Bulgaria is vulnerable to Russian disinformation as a result of traditional popular sympathies for Russia and also of weak national regulators. At the same time, Ukraine is a country at war. In a recent commentary, I have argued that Europe can learn a lot from Ukraine, not only in terms of modern warfare such as drones, but also in using AI to block Russian troll farms from influencing society. Bulgaria is vulnerable, but I must stress that fact checkers have done an amazing job. As an example, the country was targeted very strongly ahead of its Eurozone accession. Obviously, the stakes were very high. The Bulgarian fact checker community, of which we are a part, did what the authorities couldn't. We exposed the many lies designed to terrify the Bulgarians, which were amplified by some politicians. Ultimately, the introduction of the euro proved to be a success. It was a hard-fought battle. By the way, nobody said thank you, but that's fine. In our work under this project, we have focused indeed on two topics: disinformation in the context of Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, and disinformation in the context of climate change. As we all know, disinformation in the context of the Russian war in Ukraine is produced on industrial basis in Russia via troll farms and using techniques such as media spoofing. Regarding climate change, I will say something which may sound more surprising, but the primary source of the narratives originate from the United States. Several years ago, I authored an article titled The Dirty Dozen, listing the 12 US influencers who are at the origin of most of the iconic false claims that circulate on the issue of climate change, of course, aiming at discredit the efforts to combat climate change. Over the 2 years of work so far, I can confirm, I see it myself, that the efforts of the communities of fact checkers produce results, and audiences know much better how to make the difference between true and fake. But let me be clear, a 100 success is impossible, because in each country there are communities who believe either that Putin is a peacemaker, or that the earth is flat, or that Elvis is still alive. There is nothing one can do about it. For these people, such beliefs are like religion. But our journalistic work also helps us reveal how vulnerable are our societies in EU countries to disinformation. And we have discovered something you may find surprising. It's the lack of effort on behalf of administrations to verify narratives, especially when they like them. I will highlight the case of the Polish teenager recently presented as a scientific wunderkind and awarded with the Silver Cross of Merit by President Karol Nawrocki. Polish authorities, state media, international outlets, by the way, among them The Time and Forbes, they enthusiastically amplified the claims of the groundbreaking research by this young girl in scientific fields without basic checks. Once it was exposed that it was all fake, there was a big confusion. The episode illustrates how convenient narratives disarm critical scrutiny, allowing manipulation to masquerade as facts. A similar story unfolded, by the way, the next day in Italy, where the administration malfunctioned and a fake narrative has put the Italian president in uncomfortable situation. Due to a failure of basic verification, President Sergio Mattarella granted humanitarian clemency to Nicole Minetti, a figure from Berlusconi's Ruby scandal, based on claims that she needed to take care of a severely ill adoptive child. Relying on 50 pages of fake documentation, the president signed the decree. It was the media who discovered the scam. Unverified narratives can compromise even the highest institutions when administration skip basic gatekeeping. This we consider is a threat for democracy. Our project too has become the target of fake news, and the episode has underscored once again how vulnerable administrations are to the fake news and fake narratives. Lukashenko-controlled media in Belarus published a fake story according to which propagandists of the regime were invited to a training course in Sofia. Actually, it was an AI4Debunk event dedicated to test the preference of target groups as to instruments to debunk fake news. Of course, no Belarusian propagandists were invited, and it was not at all about training. However, the publication in the Lukashenko media prompted the Belarusian opposition in exile to lodge a protest with the Bulgarian Foreign Ministry, which in turn protested vis-à-vis the Bulgarian Union of Journalists who hosted the event. What followed were publications that multiplied the disinformation and the confusion. Nobody checked the fake news, nobody contacted the hosts, nobody contacted the Union of Journalists, nobody contacted us. So, at no cost, Lukashenko's propaganda created chaos, which was their goal. In a nutshell, I'm reasonably optimistic that our project will help citizens make the difference between information and fake news. But I'm less optimistic that at this stage, administrations will be able to make the difference. Maybe a special program to target the administration is needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgi, for being so precise in time. It always helps. And now I would like to invite Zhenislava to give her speech.
Yeah, thank you everyone for inviting, and I will ask to move to the next slide. So my first slide had the title Undermining Democracy and Shifting the Responsibility for the War. And in my opinion, this is two crucial directions in Russian disinformation operating either in Ukrainian informational environment or in the environment of European states. The aim is simple, so it's firstly to present democracy as a weak, as something that poses threats to countries, to so-called traditional values, as well as to shift the responsibility for aggressive action, for military aggression, for occupation to anyone else from Russia, for example, to Ukraine, to EU member states, or even so-called global allies. And in my speech, I will present the cases that we are observing within our work at Internews Ukraine. So mostly it will refer to, of course, cases related to war in Ukraine, as well as to disinformation targeting EU-Ukraine relations, because it's also connected with this topic. I will ask to go to the next slide. And in the next slide, we will have some cases we observed in the EU member states. So regarding the narratives that were disseminated in the EU member states, it's worth mentioning that we are talking here about such a complex phenomenon as FIMI, or foreign information manipulation and interference. And what is essential here, we are talking about manipulations with social polarization. Of course, every society has some painful topics, have some differences, and that is where these FIMI actors are working. And what is also essential here is the limitation of access to credible information. For example, that could be observed during so-called doppelganger operation that happened in Germany, in Romania, in Poland, and in other countries during the elections. And we could see how actually the access to credible information was limited by creating clones, fake clones of credible media outlets, by engaging bots networks, and dissemination of fake news that were also including disinformation regarding the war in Ukraine. What else is essential here is also a campaign claiming that the EU member states have nothing to do with the war in Ukraine, and that is something that Ukraine actually provoked. And what also we observed within our work, that was a campaign under the title "This is not our war." Here on the slide, it's it's a placard from Poland, but it could be also seen in some other EU member states. And also, as I was talking in the previous slide, we talk about shifting the responsibility from the aggressor to actually the victim of this aggression. And we talk about impacting the social opinion about the EU support of Ukraine during these hard times. Also, what I wanted to say here, in my opinion, it's also very essential, is masking of entertaining content. So we see here also some examples of people who actually are citizens of either EU member states or even the United States of America, who create lifestyle content for their social media showing the life in Russia. And actually, they are not problematizing what is going on. They are not problematizing the war. Instead, they're talking about so-called Russophobia that is existing in the EU member states, and also shift responsibility for actually the war, what is happening now, to the EU member states. So that was briefly about cases we observed in the EU member states environment, and I would like to go to the next slide, please. And here that are some findings from our work during the DARE project, where we actually observe disinformation narratives targeting EU-Ukraine relations in the Ukrainian informational environment. I really wanted to present this project because what we found here is that social media, and especially Telegram, is becoming maybe the key platform for dissemination of fake news in Ukraine. What else? We also see here a rise of use of AI-generated content. And actually, this impacts the minds of Ukrainians who are suffering from the war. And it also aims to shift the responsibility for aggressive actions to actually EU member states. So here were some examples, and what I wanted to show here, it's also that these actors are trying to play on some painful topics like Ukraine-Poland relations, like state of Ukrainian refugees in the EU member state, mobilization in Ukraine, religion, and also, for example, within the winter, when there were severe blackouts caused by Russian attacks, that was the topic of electricity, particularly trade of electricity between the EU and Ukraine. And it was also presented under the guise of analytical content, as you can see here on the slide. It was disseminated on social media, and later people were asked to go to so-called protests to demand actually from Ukrainian authorities to return the electricity that was allegedly sold to the EU. So that's also a case that illustrates how fake news influenced by the war, by the combat actions, by the consequences of Russian attacks, how it operates in Ukraine. And lastly, I would also like to show the next slide. In my opinion, this is also a very remarkable case, and I always refer to this when I have some opportunity to make a presentation, make a speech. So this is the so-called Foundation for the Fight Against Repression that target the EU member states, that targets Ukraine, and actually these news are hidden under the guise of so-called human rights content, human rights defense. Also, this organization involved the network of pseudo-experts or bots which disseminate articles like this, as you can see on the slides.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, you have your time over. Just please finalize.
Yeah, actually, it was my last slide. So I also wanted to show how the content is hidden under the guise of so-called human rights defense. And in conclusion, I would like to say that this is a complex phenomenon that demands finding new ways in either debunking and searching of new ways to counter these influences. That's why I think that this project is really essential to make our societies more sustainable towards these malign impacts. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. And now I would like to invite Pascalina with her presentation.
Thank you very much, Sigita. I would like to say, and also in relation to what Zenislava and Georgi have said before, we cannot ignore disinformation. What if disinformation were an irritating mosquitoes in the room? It starts small, you barely notice it at first, but then it starts buzzing, you hear it, you try to ignore it, but it keeps coming back and eventually it bites. Afterwards, it leaves an irritation, you scratch it, it changes starting affecting your feelings, the way you react, and how you trust your surroundings. These illustrations, it's not scientific, it's helped by AI, but it's to show that the cognitive resilience to disinformation is also something very important, including in disinformation about climate change. Next slide, please. So if we go to climate disinformation and some findings of our AI4Debunk project, the disinformation on climate change is not something new. It is coming also from the fact that climate is a complicated science. So there have been a lot of disinformation spreading, and I fully agree with what Georgi said. The administrations, including the EU institutions, were also affected by disinformation. For instance, there has been a buzz on, the future of hydrogen. It has created a kind of enthusiasm bubbles, but already at that time, scientific reports were much more cautious, saying that it would not be sufficient to have a kind of sustainable energy transition. So all this makes it understand that if you want to really have a real concrete scientific-based information on climate, you need to enter a kind of gray zone because this topic is complex. It was really creating, let's say, a fertile ground on disinformation and misinformation. On the contrary to what Zenislava said on disinformation related to the war in Ukraine, climate disinformation is spreading from different sources. It can be fossil fuels lobbies. It can be also more recently also relayed by more official sources, since we know that in the United States, the US president declared that the climate change is a hoax. And now it's also affecting the funding of climate programs, not yet in Europe, but at the international level. And so the real science on climate change is at stake. So of course it had some influence. There have been impacts with fake news on wind turbines causing cancer in France in 2023, for instance. The disinformation, which was amplified by bots, led to some riots and between the activists and the police forces, which resulted in a casualty. So we see that it can really be, let's say, grounded in polarized narratives and lead to a lot of, let's say, dissent and destabilization in democratic countries. Next slide, please. So we had these surveys at AI4Debunk where we see that we ask the citizens where they can identify disinformation, for instance, on climate change, and most of them still consume their news online. They use social media, and they say that where they can identify most of the fake news is on social media. Next slide, please. So we can see that we go from...
Pascalina, I'm sorry, you have maximum 1 minute because time is over already.
Thank you. We go from malicious actors and FIMI to more official related disinformation. In Europe, we're still fighting against it with the Democracy Shield and all the initiatives we have, but we cannot ignore this disinformation and resurgence of fake news, the manipulation on social media. And next slide, please. The individual solutions, including media literacy and critical thinking, will not be sufficient. The regulation is playing an increasing role, as well as the technological solutions involving AI. And since we are now in the moment where the AI digital omnibus regulation is being approved, we need to really be careful that we still keep a kind of going in the right direction to be able to fight against this disinformation. Thank you.
Pascaline, amazing. Thank you so much for being so disciplined. Not often it happens, but now I would like to ask to all three of you a question related to the long-term impact and let's say, rather the one which goes beyond information space, for example, public trust, safety, resilience, support to democratic institutions. All of you mentioned that indeed the false narratives themselves and disinformation in general is complex phenomenon, and we speak not only of narratives or spreading disinformation, but rather such issues as cognitive resilience needed, which Pascaline mentioned, so all of you also mentioned the short-term results like riots, diverse perceptions, polarized opinions. But what about long-term impact on democratic societies? Who would like to start?
I can start.
Pascaline? Okay.
Okay, well, thank you. Yes, this is exactly a really good question. I mean, the disinformation which is taking place begins not with complete fabrication. I mean, the fake news usually contain partial truth or like surf on social anxiety that people recognize in periods of uncertainty, like economic insecurity. We have the war at the borders of Europe. We have energy crisis. We are in a really difficult moment. We are really at a critical turning point. There will be also really important elections coming up next year in Europe, in several countries. And so we are a really important moment. And Georgi mentioned already that in Bulgaria, things are also evolving. We've seen also the results of the vote in Hungary. So we are really at a critical moment where we need to be really cautious and careful to make sure that there is not interference and that we are able to debunk disinformation or at least restrict its impacts.
Thank you. Georgi?
Yes, thank you for this opportunity to try to paint the bigger picture. The rapid emergence of generative artificial intelligence is coinciding with one of the most profound geopolitical realignments after the end of the Cold War. As major powers increasingly treat information as a weapon, disinformation operations are going much beyond the crude Russian troll farm campaigns. They are going into the direction of AI augmented ecosystems. And drawing on my experience of journalist, more than 20 years here in Brussels, I would say that the most pressing threat to European democracy no longer stems solely from Moscow's hybrid warfare, but from the structural dominance of American technology platforms and the rise from what can be called technofascism, the fusion of unchecked corporate power, algorithmic amplification, and political authoritarianism. The European Union regulatory assertiveness, while well-intentioned, has backfired. We have seen this in the relations with Washington under the second Trump administration. in any case, no credible alternative to dominant US messaging apps, their social platforms, browsers, and so on is emerging. And to be frank, initiatives such as AI4Debunk and the much broader Democracy Shield, although they represent valuable first steps, in my perspective, remain a drop in the ocean. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgi. And Zhenislava, please.
I actually fully agree with the other panelists. What else I wanted to say here is that when we are talking about fake news, about the use of social media generated content, it's really also an essential issue when we are talking about the impacts on the youth that is also participating in an election. And it's a really, I can say, terrifying tendency when we see how young people are voting for powers that actually do not support democracy, that are anti-democratic in their nature. And in my opinion, that is also the representation of these impacts of disinformation, of fake news. And it also poses the necessity to the need of combating of these impacts and complex approach to this aspect.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. But now I would like to turn also to some, let's say, constructive thoughts. And very shortly, I would like to ask all three speakers to think of the possible solutions, since AI4Debunk basically focuses on AI-driven fact-checking and debunking. We already noted today that it is important, most likely, to pre-bunk, which would be rather on building resilience. But based on your experience, what is one capability, such a tool that must have to be genuinely useful for journalists, fact-checkers, civil society, or researchers? Who would like to start?
I can start.
Please.
I think that there is a short term for giving an answer to your question, and that is digital sovereignty. I think that European platforms, genuine European platforms, sovereign cloud infrastructure, AI systems developed under democratic oversight is the answer to the challenges. Only by confronting, the old and the new phases of information warfare can Europe protect the integrity of its public sphere and preserve the democratic model it has spent decades building. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgi. I'm not sure if all of us we will agree on splitting or decoupling from US, but let's turn on Pascaline's views.
Yes, thank you. I tend to agree with Georgi that we need more strategic autonomy, but I would think that we need to have a step-by-step approach, work with, we have in AI4Debunk, we see that there are universities, technical developers who are really qualified and talentuous, and they would be able to develop maybe systems which are, let's say, curbing the dependence without, really entirely let's say, give up on a boundless digital world, but that will create more a digital world without risk of FIMI, which is something important, and preserving our value, and also based on the shared reality that we can still trust. So I think, yes, I would tend to agree. But I think a step-by-step approach using and capitalizing on the European talents would be the solution.
Thank you, Pascaline. Zhenislava?
I also wanted to add, in my opinion, what is essential when we are talking about some technical tools about pre-banking is to use language that will be understood by the audiences, because it often happens so that disinformation actors, malign actors provide, I can say, simple answers to complicated questions. And that happens that content that is credible, that some even debunking content is sometimes simply doesn't reach the audience. And that's why I think that what is also essential when we are talking about this combatant is to use this more simple language. It's also creation of own narratives, more something more complex that more complex than just debunking. And yeah, it also step-by-step technical tools. In my opinion, that will be the ideal combination.
Thank you very much for noting this important aspect as simple, emotional, and attractive communication, which so often we are missing here in Europe. But now I have to say thank you to panelists for this important aspects noted by them. And the one of the key messages I take from this discussion is that looking on false narratives definitely is essential, but it's only beginning. Narratives are visible layer. Behind them, we need to understand much broader reality, the modern hybrid war under which we are already as European societies is already living in here. And this means that we cannot focus only on individual pieces of disinformation or isolated false claims. We need to look deeper. We need to dig deeper at our society's vulnerabilities, fears, perceptions, divisions, and the ways the hostile actors try to exploit them. Disinformation works not only because of someone produces it, but because it finds open ears and it finds openings in our societal, political, and emotional landscapes. So the challenge before us is not simply to correct false narratives, but to strengthen societal and informational resilience. And this requires critical thinking, which was mentioned by Pascaline, trusted institutions, which was mentioned by speakers, responsible media, again, mentioned by all three speakers, Stratcom as well, education, and much deeper understanding of how people form perceptions in times of hybrid war we are facing at the moment. So I hope our discussion is not kind of ending point, and we have other very valuable speakers further. Thanks a lot for to speakers, and let's turn to the next speaker.
Thank you very much, Sigita, and all panelists for your insights, for the key messages. It was very productive, and thank you for your work as well. We move forward to the next panel, and the moderator of this panel will be Kevin. Kevin is actually the chair of innovation management team at AI4Debunk. He's also a senior researcher at EASY Lab, University of Mons, and also head of AI and research at Diablo.com. I will share now screen, and so Kevin, you can present also your panelists. Give me a moment. You'll be able to see.
Yes, thank you, Victoria. Hi, everybody. Like Victoria said, I'm a senior researcher at the University of Mons, based in Belgium, and I'm very happy to host this session of the panel. So, as was probably mentioned before, our project aims at providing AI-based tools to help people take more informed decisions on whether an information is disinformation or not. We have been working on this topic for a while now, and we have learned lessons along the way. During this session, my colleagues and I will explore some of these lessons, present them to you, and hopefully have a bit of your feedback. Let me start by introducing everybody. So first we have Dr. Marco Pirone from Italy. Sorry. Marco is a research fellow at the Italian National Research Council, CNR, with a PhD in media and mediality. We have also Dr. Frank van der Bent, who's a researcher at the University of Applied Sciences in Utrecht in the Netherlands. And finally, Dr. Lisa Filippidou, who's the head of innovation Start Hub from the company Dotsoft in Greece. We will cover altogether three different topics, starting with the risks of using AI chatbots as source of information. Then we'll talk about the use of debunking as a method for disinformation countering. And then we'll talk about different types of interfaces because it's important for the adoption of tools combating disinformation. We'll first start with discussing the risk of using AI chatbots. As said, by AI chatbots, we mean tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, tools like this. We'll discuss this. We'll discuss this with Dr. Pirone. But before giving the floor to Marco, we'd like to run a short poll with you, and we'd like to gather your opinion about whether you use yourself chatbots for disinformation or to look for to validate information. So please take a few minutes to a few seconds to fill in the form, and you should see the results now. And we have a majority of people, so we have 25 people who voted, majority of them, so 14, do not use these chatbots as sources of information, and a good portion, 44% of people do actually, which is coherent with the type of survey also we ran in our consortium and the type of results you would find in research papers, because chatbots are complementing or even replacing nowadays search engines, right? So it's an interesting result, and as we see this, I give the floor to Marco to discuss the risks of this behavior, I mean this habit. Marco?
Thank you very much, Kevin, and hello, everyone. This question leads on a very important issue related to AI chatbots and disinformation. Particularly today, AI systems are becoming part of our daily lives, and people use them to search for information, summarize articles, answer questions, and even support decision-making. So one of the biggest advantages of these tools is speed. So AI can generate answers almost instantly and often in a very fluent and convincing way. However, this is also where the problem begins. In fact, fast and confident answers are not always reliable answers. And sometimes AI system can generate inaccurate information, fake citations, or oversimplified explanation. In many cases, users may trust these answers too quickly simply because they sound credible. And for this reason, I prepared a slide where I highlighted some important red flags that we should learn to recognize. So the first one here is the absence of sources or references. So if an AI gives strong statements without evidence, we should be careful. Another red flag is vague or generic information, as sometimes answers sound correct, but they do not provide concrete details or context. And we also need to pay attention to hallucinated facts or fake citations, because AI models can sometimes even bend information. And finally, overconfidence and lack of nuance are particularly problematic when discussing complex topics such as politics, science, or even social issues. So the conclusion of this is that technology alone is not the solution, or is not the only solution. This is why I also focused on the role of education, because education is essential if you want people to interact responsibly with the AI system. We should not only teach users how to use AI tools, but also how to question them critically. In particular, students and users should learn to verify information, compare multiple sources, and understand that AI systems can also have limitations. In other words, critical thinking becomes a key skill in the age of generative AI. So the main idea behind this reflection is very simple in conclusion. AI is extremely useful and powerful, but human judgment is still essential. In this regard, effective human-AI collaboration depends not only on better algorithms, but also on informed and educated users. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marco. So speaking about critical thinking and having to question the output, we'll jump to the following segment with Liz, but which focuses on debunking methods. So while debunking represent methods that aim at detecting and countering disinformation that are already spreading, debunking is a preventive method to counter disinformation by warning people about propagation methods and their goals before encountering them. So it's like a vaccine shot, basically. The goal is to raise awareness about it so that people are better at recognizing it when it happens, right? So before giving the floor to Liz, that will present our work around that, we'd like to run another poll to see about your opinion about the efficiency of debunking. So how well do you think this method would personally affect you? Would it be would it be better would it help you recognize this information better if you knew in advance the different methods, techniques that are used for disinformation spreading? So you should see normally the questions appearing now with 4 options. We have 23 respondents, and the majority of you think that it's at least moderately efficient. And we have a good part that think it is efficient. We have some questions also, which I'll take a bit duration. Okay, yeah, that's a good point from the chat. Suggestion is that some people are not aware of the efficiency, which is a good point. And just for your information, several studies already tackle the problem of, the methods of debunking, and most of them, if not all that I'm aware of at least, show that it has a positive impact on at least discerning the methods of the techniques of manipulation and like emotional manipulation or other things like that. It has a positive effect on recognizing these approaches. So we have our partner Dotsoft who worked on our version of a debunking approach with a VR tool. So I'll leave the floor to Liz to talk about debunking and their development.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks. Hello, everyone. Disinformation war zone. So let's see what we did in the project in order to strengthen this debunking muscle of ours. So we developed a VR game that helps people within an immersive and gamification manner understand the complexity and the seriousness and the severity of the problem of disinformation, but also realize what is the impact that disinformation leaves behind. So what we will show you now is a video of the experience of showing some scenes of the VR game. You will see some snapshot of the game, while on the right corner you will see the player from a camera while playing the game. So I think we are ready to see the film.
Let's build your truth space. Let's go over a few things that will help you. For now, I'll only be the voice that guides you. Can you see that small octopus-like little sculpture on the empty desk? Go ahead and grab it. Now, let's explore my special abilities. Can you see the door with the glowing logo on it? Use it to reach the door. That's it. Let's continue. Your calm space for work, interaction, research, and create. My name is Nutru, your AI assistant, and what you see in front of you is my next form. This form is called the Klein bottle. I'll guide you out of this place so we can build your truth space. But let's get ready for your next step. Here is another version of me. Your challenge now is to find out which is the reliable information by reading correctly the information. Wrong. This image is fake news. This would be a wrong choice. In the bombing news case, the actual name of this agency strongly suggests a lack of credibility. Welcome to the pipes. Correct. Let me comment on the first image. This was generated by me, by artificial intelligence. Let me spot the fake elements, the expression, posture, and lighting of the character, the size of the airplane, the symmetrical layout of the whole picture. I think some exercise would help you. What do you think? We are now in the labyrinth. You will have to choose the right path to exit the labyrinth. Good luck, and remember, only by sharpening your reasoning will you be able to break free. Well done. One challenge left. Go on. You are now ready to unlock this transparent door in order to reach your new truth space. Keep calm, think, decide, and ask the right question. Good question. Economic problems rarely come from refugees alone. They usually have broader structural causes.
Of course, the 2D, two-dimensional adaptation of the game is not the same as the game itself. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Liz, for this demonstration. So this was about our pre-bunking approach. We have also, of course, for the third segment, the debunking approach, and a very important parameter to take into account for debunking is the interfaces that are used, because that's what the user uses, right? So if they are not adapted, there will not be an adoption of the tools, and the information verification will not be a behavior adopted by people at the end. So interfaces are crucial to the adoption of this information countering tool. So in addition to chatbots, our consortium at AI4Debunk has been exploring other interfaces like plugins, which are easily accessible from the top bar of your browser, and apps easily accessible from phone. So we put an importance on being easily accessible and easily usable. Before I give the floor to Frank to talk about our work on this, we'd like to gather again your opinion on whether you would use each of these two types of interfaces that I just mentioned in your daily or professional lives. So the mobile app and a dedicated browser plugin to verify information or not. So you should see the last poll survey that we prepared popping up in front of you, and we'll gather the results shortly. Of course, we are, as a reminder, in AI4Debunk, we're exploring several types of interfaces, and the goal again for this is to find the right tool for people to actually use and raise adoption of not the tool itself, but the behavior of verifying information, right? So your feedback is very valuable on this. And so we have 26 participants in our poll, and the majority of them would use both the app and the plugin to verify information if it were available to them. That's a very comforting result. And I'd be very interested to see the comparison between these and a chatbot, for example, at some point, but that's not for today. So based on these results, we'll jump to our last speaker, Frank, which focused a lot on developing several interfaces in AI4Debunk. Frank, you have the floor.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for introducing me, Kevin. First, I want to share a little sneak preview of our chat engine. You talked about it a lot, Kevin, and I think it's wise of you to show what it can do. So when you type into a similarity search and relation for this, so for example, Putin announced major military operations in the eastern Ukraine and verify if it's deepfake text or not. So you can see what the chatbot is doing. It's actually accessing the interfaces at the back end, and it's trying to come up with an answer. It's found a couple of articles that match, and it found a couple of articles that do not match. And the final verdict, it came up with a 50% rating. So this is part of our approach that we want to share lots of information to the user if the user actually wants that. So, well, going from this little demonstration of the chatbot towards what I wanted to talk about. Can I get the next slide? The plans for the AI4Debunk project were actually completed back in the stone ages of AI 2023, and I feel a big relief when new research finding concur with what we thought of back in 2023. But when you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, you see that humanity is trying to come into terms with something quite new. Every new insight pushes us to adjust our course and keep up with the state-of-the-art developments. And a lot of things are happening. So I want to share with you something of the continuous project improvements based on new research. As it's no longer 2023, research can and needs to be done, so we need to make new assumptions, create new software, and verify our assumptions. In this AI4Debunk project, we are now at the stage where we are building the beta software we have carefully designed in previous stages and start with iterations and improvements and test teams and stuff like that. So today I want to focus on something practical by going back to the basis of the problem at hand. And the basis of the problem lies actually in how do we reduce the sharing of false information. I take it everyone has taken a look at the tools, at the introduction of the tools at the AI4Debunk website. And if you didn't do that yet, please do take a look. Kevin has talked about it a little bit, and I will be going into it a little bit more, because the biggest harm usually happens not because something is wrong intentionally or not, but because it gets shared quickly and widely. So one of our goals is to have fewer harmful shares, and we can intervene at three moments in time. we can do that while people are reading, give them small context without breaking the flow of the user. That of course is irritating. And the right before they share, a small pause, so to say, a small speed bump. And after it is posted, a text context directly to the content, so resharing becomes less attractive. This is important because more information doesn't automatically change behavior. The timing and the format decide what people will actually do. So I've taken 2 practical lessons from recent PNAS research articles, and the 2 lessons I want to discuss with you guys. On Twitter and X, lesson A on Twitter and X, you sometimes see the community notes. It's a short explanation written and rated by people. Researchers ask what happens when a note is actually attached to a misleading post. And they found that engagement and diffusion go down. And that's interesting because in simple terms, it means visible attached context can add like a brake on sharing. And that's exactly what we're looking at. That's exactly what we're looking for. And that's exactly what we want to incorporate in our tooling. And lesson B, AI fact checks don't automatically help and can sometimes actually backfire. And this is a bit of a strange one, so let me get a bit into that. Another experiment tested the AI-generated fact check explanation for political headlines. The question, does showing an AI fact make people better at judging what's true and sharing accurate news more? So that's what we all are hoping for. But on average, nah, not really. And in certain cases, it actually can go wrong. That is to say, if AI mistakenly labels something true as false, people may believe the true thing less. And that's not what we want. And the second one, if AI is uncertain about something false, people may believe the false thing more. And for us, this is the user experience punchline. When people were given the option to open AI fact checks, those who chose to do so were more likely to share both true and false items. So a quick reflection question. A fact check can sometimes lead to more sharing. And how's that? Because if you design it as a clickable feature, it can become another form of engagement. And that's important to the lessons for our software and our user experience. And this is why in AI4Debunk, we're not building the one magic AI truth machine. We're actually building different interfaces, not only pre-bunking, what we just shared with you, but also debunking, and with interfaces that people are familiar with. For example, the chat session you just saw, people don't have to learn anything to use a chat, and people don't have to learn anything to use a plugin in a browser. It's the easiest way of getting to these rather difficult AI backend engines. So with that, we want to reduce sharing at different moments. So let us focus again only on the sharing moments, just to focus on the sharing moments. Let's go to the right side of the picture, the browser plugin. And let's call that a read moment for now. You don't want to interrupt the user flow while reading, but facilitate the user through the user's thoughts when they pop up. Thoughts like, really, this seems odd, or can this actually be true? Just quickly check within the browser and provide a short context, or even, and that's what we're looking at right now, produce a small context without a check option. So just small context about what the user is browsing toward. Then we're working on a mobile app, and for focusing on the share moment, the app could act like a speed bump right before forwarding, like, wait. I want a quick source check. And the goal, we want to reduce the impulse of sharing information, and that we want to do that without lecturing. And then we just saw the chatbot, the explain moment. A chatbot should be a coach, not a judge. And people really need to understand what AI can and can't do. So it can verify a claim, it can look for sources, compare, suggest next steps. And we want to avoid a bot that sounds like a final referee. And the last one we're working at is a communication platform, and that's the publish moment. And that really aligns with the article I just talked about. This is how we build trust at scale. AI helps to sort and highlight information, but people create trust by checking it together and showing clear sources. Very similar to what makes community notes, what I just recently talked about, makes community notes effective. So the key message for us is AI is young and it's changing fast. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone knows that. But what we should actually do are small nudges, things I just presented, so that it makes the system lots and lots more efficient by adding little features. So we shouldn't build systems that acquire AI to be perfect, but instead we should build interfaces that reduce harmful sharing. And that is, just to summarize, by
Sorry
combining
to
easy.
interrupt, but if you can wrap up.
Yes, that was the last sentence, actually, Kevin. Yeah. Easily accessible, visible context, and a small pause before sharing, and human legitimacy when it matters. And that's what AI4Debunk is aiming to deliver. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank. As closing remarks for this session, I'd like to thank everybody who participate and share their insights. In general, our finding in our research and the ones we are familiar with underscore that addressing disinformation effectively requires a human-centric approach. We can build the best systems to detect things, but if they're not going to be used because too complicated or whatever, or not adapted to the needs, then they're worthless, right? So moving forward, it is essential that we and other work similar to ours keep users in the loop during development of whatever they're doing to ensure our research, our results are both practical and impactful, most importantly. Specifically, our team will continue developing decision support solutions for pre-bunking and debunking, like you saw. We welcome each partner that you've seen throughout this webinar. Any potential collaboration, if you feel like it, don't hesitate to reach out, and we invite everybody to do so. Thank you very much, Anarita and Victoria. Back to you.
Thank you, Kevin, for moderating this panel. Now, the human-AI collaboration seems more promising and definitely optimistic. So thank you very much. It was super interesting. And thank you to the audience for participating in our polls. This is super valuable for us, your opinion. And now I give the floor to our chair, to the steering committee, Iveta, for final remarks and what will be the next steps for AI4Debunk.
I would like to thank everyone who find the time to join this webinar. And my special thanks to all our speakers, moderators, participants for engaging in a discussion, for answering the polls. Today's webinar reminded us that disinformation it's real technological challenge, but also it requires us to come up with innovation at the social, political, and educational fields. And as we see, the artificial intelligence can either spread of false and manipulative content, but also can be usable tool for detection, verification, analysis, and public awareness. One of the key takeaway is that no single institution or discipline can anymore address these challenges alone. So in order to have some kind of response that are effective, we need to cooperate between governance, academia, networks, technology developers, citizens. So networks are the key answer. And I really hope that every one of us can take some ideas out of today's webinar, not only just the new insights, but also the inspirations for future. And what deals with our project, we continue to work on and to provide our insight in actually bringing the academic perspective, how we could fight disinformation, considering that it's not the easy task to do. I wish you a productive and innovative rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we can close our webinar here. Thank you. And if you want to connect, we are available for our social media channels, and stay tuned for more events of AI4Debunk. Thank you very much, everyone.